Morning.
Marcia, there's so many legal issues that surround our lives every day. And when we look at the newspapers within a week, there's so many serious issues that impact our life. And I think I want to start addressing some of those issues as they arise. And, I invite people to call in with their comments to encourage debate on these issues, because a lot of them are not settled issues and a lot of them are yet to be determined, but they impact on our lives. And, if we just look this week, for example, at the newspapers, there's this whole debate over SOT, the Special Anti-Crime Unit, and the legality of it. And Attorney Wayne Sturge recently in a case has questioned whether or not the police operating under SOT can actually lay charges. That is a serious issue because it goes to the whole heart of their functions. We also have, I saw one or two cases this week in the newspapers of where people have been awarded damages for wrongful arrest, and the state paying compensation for police officers who have failed in the execution of their duty. And I think people must always be aware of what their rights are in terms of if police breach their responsibilities, if they wrongly arrest you, they beat you, or they do anything that really breaches your constitutional rights. And it happens and it passes in the newspapers so often, but I think a lot of people don't realize what their recourse is for errant police officers. You also have two editorials this week, one in the Newsday and one in the Guardian, or the Express, I think is, talking about the role and responsibility of the government to obey laws themselves, because they are the exemplars, and they are the ones who are supposed to set the standard for the rest of us to follow in terms of their compliance. And when you set a bad example, or you break the law, or you're flippant about it, you send a very strong signal to the rest of the country.
Exactly.
And it translates to simply things like breaking the traffic light. Well, it's small, it's simple, but there's a cumulative effect. And when we looked at crime plans around the world that worked, like the zero tolerance plan of Giuliani, it worked because everybody decided to conform to obeying the law. And again, it's that understanding of why there must be compliance of the law and why it's very often an important issue and not a political issue. And I come back to the Teixeira issue that's now dead, not meaning to rehash it, but it's a fine example of
why should you not rehash it? Let us rehash it.
But it's an important issue that we need to always understand, that if you just say, look, it's political, brush it aside, don't worry about it, then what you're doing is sending a signal, well, if you could break the law and get away with it, or you can do things that are improper, why worry? And that's why office holders have a higher responsibility than the average citizen, because you take that oath, you take that responsibility. The Commissioner of Police, the Prime Minister, all parliamentarians, they have a different duty of care. And that raises an interesting point that you might like, that in the law of defamation, where you can sue people for saying things ill of your character, politicians have a different standard of proof than ordinary citizens. In other words, politicians are deemed to be able to take a greater licking than you and I. But again, it all is like how standards are judged, and another issue that I think we have to unfortunately rehash, and it was contained in an editorial, is the fact that the summit is now gone, but there were huge infractions of constitutional rights. That while we accepted in principle that the summit it was important, you can't breach constitutional rights and dismiss it, because what you do is you lay the foundation that if ever it is breached in future, you have then said, look, I have now laid the foundation, I did it already, I can do it again. And people don't understand how important constitutional rights are. And it comes back to the issue of even the recent judgment of the Privy Council with the Trinity Cross. And it all ties back into constitutional rights, whether or not the Trinity Cross itself was constitutional. And so it demonstrates, while the case may be assessed as an emotional case, well, Trinity Cross has been there before the Constitution, that was the argument, and it should have been left there. The Privy Council looks at the Constitution as a document which says that there must be equality for all.
Right.
And equality means that you must take away any perceptions of inequality, so that if that created a perception of inequality, as was held by the local courts, then it is deemed to be unconstitutional. So then again, you see, there are various avenues in the law that create very significant rights for the individuals, quite apart from your basic private law rights and whether it be land, matrimonial or otherwise, and it's important to deal with that. And two other simple issues that catch my attention, Marcia, is this issue of swine flu that is alarming. We have a Minister of Health who quite bravely says not only we have nothing to worry about, but it's under control. My concern is you're in a situation where ordinarily we can't deal with, we don't have enough beds, we don't have enough medicine, we aren't able to operate or look after our citizens. Yet you're brave enough and bold enough to say, bring on swine flu, we're prepared to deal with it. And when you look at any international TV, how the world is dealing with this pandemic, it is a frightening situation because you're faced with an epidemic that if it is launched in Trinidad or it occurs here, we are so incapable of dealing with it that it's not funny.
I don't know if you heard Navi Muradali just prior to this program, but he was saying that we can't even test for it. We don't have the requisite materials to even test for it, so we don't know. So we can't say that we can deal with it because we don't know.
Precise, and you see, you mislead the public in their false sense of security when you have a responsibility. And how that ties back into the law, Marcia, is in England, in the United States, in a lot of first world countries, any infractions of health authorities, people take legal action. That's why you have high insurance policies abroad. That's why the state provides insurance for people who are citizens of foreign countries, because there's such a high responsibility on healthcare services that they're afraid to get sued, that they take every precaution and the state will cover them by insurance. Here, there's no insurance unless you can afford it. So you know what? No doctor is willing to testify against another doctor. Very few cases are brought. Most of them are settled. So the public is left in the dark thinking, well, if I am treated badly or inefficiently, or my friend or relative dies or get the wrong type of treatment, I have no legal redress. Sure. And that's what I deserve. And that can't be the case, because you deserve more than that legally. And the last thing that catches my attention is I saw on TV6, and it's on the newspapers today, that they were complaining about being left out of the Prime Minister's breakfast meeting and also his interview on CNC3, that they were not given the right to be covered.
Who? The TV station?
TV6, saying that there must be equality. And I think the PRO of the PNM, Mr. Naris, says that, well, to quote him, he said the girl forgot to send it out.
Oh my God.
The information. But you see, what it raises is when the opposition, I've said in the past, fails to be the proper watchdog of the citizens, the media and journalists play a very important role to be the watchdogs. If you conveniently forget them, it creates the impression that you don't like what they report, you don't like what they're saying, but you will pick who you like. And that is a dangerous signal. And that is something that has to be addressed. So we have many issues to look at this morning.
It's so very petty as well. It really, really is. Okay, what we're going to do now is take a much needed break. When we come back, we're going to jump right in. I'd like us to deal with SOT. I really, really would, because I don't understand that at all. If you're a police officer, you should be able to lay a charge, right? But we'll talk about it when we come back from the break. Stay with us, people.